Years ago when I was a little boy, there was an old woman that lived near Granny, and she used to have loads of cats, right? And the poor old creator wouldn't harm anyone. She used to feed them and look after them and give them food. And she used to use all her pension money to feed the cats, right? And everyone used to laugh at her, saying, "Oh, she's half mad and she's cracked and she's silly." But you know what? The poor old creator loved her cats and they were her family, right? And she fed them and she gave them the best of meat. She'd go to the shop and she'd buy the best of ham or the best of corned beef for the old cats, and she'd go home hungry herself. So one day, some old nosy old neighbour, some old bitch, on who she was, she complained about her, right? She said, "Oh, this how much she look at all her old cats." And she phoned up the man in charge of the coming around collecting all the dogs and the cats from the animal cruelty. And she said, she basically told him that all her poor old cats were they were malnourished and all that, right? So your man called round anyway, and all the cats were all out in the yard and everything. But the cats were as full and they were drinking milk and they were eating food, and the cats weren't a bit hungry at all. But the old fella that called round was determined that he didn't want to go home without catching a few cats, because he was delighted, because see, he'd get more money if he brought more cats in from the head office, right? So he went in and he was kind of licking his lips and clapping his hands. He was delighted because he saw tabby cats, there were brown cats, there were Manx cats, there were cats with kittens, there were cats with baby-sized kittens, and there were kittens with kittens. You wouldn't believe it. There were tomcats. There were just tomcats everywhere. There was surely that about 800 cats, right?
The man died, I remember.
Yeah, well, this one's slightly different now, right? So what happened was the old fella came and he said to the woman, "I'm taking your cats." And she says, "No, what's wrong with me?" He said, "Oh, you have to take your cats, I'm taking them away." And the old bitch of a neighbour who was looking over the ditch, smiling and delighted with herself while getting rid of all the cats, right? So the poor old woman said, "I can't do anything. You can't take my cats." And the old man said, the old warden fella said, "I'm taking them." And he said, "Well, what did I do?" She said, "But he said, there's no law." He said, "Well, you just can't have too many cats. One over here has got a broken whisker. That's a case. You'll go to court. The other fella here, she's got a long toenail." And the woman said, "That's not for a cat. Don't be silly." He said, "Well, I'll bring you to court now, and I'll take the cats off you, and I'll take your house off you." And the poor old woman started to get afraid. So your man pulled out a big old net and he started throwing the cats into the net. And now the poor old cats were screaming and roaring. And he fucked them all into the back of the van. He caught one after one after one, right? And the old Calvin one was over the ditch listening away, and she was grinning and rubbing her hands delighted. She'd all delighted with herself. She'd nothing better to do, and he complained about the other woman. So what happened was the poor old woman the poor old woman was trying to protect one cat that had four lovely kittens, snow white kittens, and they were furry and hairy and they were lovely kittens. And then the old man come and pushed the old woman on the ground, and the poor old woman fell over and banged her hip, and then she knocked over. She banged against the wall, and then some of the rest of the cats, especially the tomcats. Now the old tomcats be cute, Eppie. There was one tomcat. He looked like a bit like Jojo. I think he was Jojo's great grandfather. He was tabby like Jojo, right? And he saw that, and he could not bear that because he was so happy with the woman, right? So he waited and this old tomcat, the man couldn't catch him. He just head back, and he rounded up all the cats apart from one cat. And the poor old woman was bawling her eyes out, crying, "They're taking me cats, they're taking me cats, they're taking me cats." Now the old tomcat was able to sit up in the tree and he was able to see what happened, and he noticed the old warden fella walk over to the old bitch of an old neighbour one, and they had a word over the ditch, and they started to smile, and the old tomcat heard what happened, and the poor old woman was sitting on the step with her hands in her hands up into her face, crying into her hands. She's never seen her cats again. So the old neighbour, the old bitch one, come over and says, "Oh, what's wrong, Mrs. I think her name is Mrs. MacDonald. What's wrong, Mrs. MacDonald? You're crying. So you'd be better off without those cats. They were an awful nuisance, and you'll be better off." And she says, "Well, sure, that's none of your business. Whatever I do with my life, I can do whatever I want with my life. Not you do look after yourself, and I look after myself." "Oh, well, you'd be better off, Mrs. MacDonald." So the old warden fella, anyway, right? He rounded up the last cat. I think it was a little kitten, but he didn't realise the old tomcat was still out loose, right? And just as he opened the door, the back of the van doors, Eppie, and there were double doors, right? And the old bitch of an old one was there as well, right? So the old tomcat, he threw the last kitten in, And the old tomcat came up, lads, and you know what he did? He went after the two with his paws, stood up, and he ripped the face off the owl one and the owl lad, right? And then he went for them like this. The tomcat did attack the owl lad and the owl one, not the nice old one, but the old bitch of an owl one. And when they did that, right, then the door what do you call it? Open up, and then all the cats. There was surely 799 cats, right, lads? And all the cats saw a chance, and they just jumped out, and all the cats jumped on top of the owl and the owl one, and they started biting them and scraping them, and taking chunks out of them and pulling the hair out of them.
I think give it a howl with this crab.
Yeah, and Jojo was there, and he was telling all the cats to kill the owl and the owl one, and the old woman said, "Stop." Well, the old owl was the old ranger fellow was on the ground going, "We'll never stop, save our lives, they're going to kill us." And the old woman said, "Psh, psh, 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 psh." The cats all stopped, and she goes, "Stop now, lads, don't be bold, the man's only doing his job. And as for you, Mrs. McGrath," she says, "that was a very mean thing to do to me, to take me poor old cats." And the old one says to him, say help us, save us." And the old one said to Miss McGrath, "I'll save you if you promise to leave me cats alone." "Oh, no, I'll get rid of those cats." The old one goes, "Psh, psh, psh, psh," and the cats start and it's okay, sorry, I'll stop. And the one goes, psh, 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 and the cats all stopped. And the man goes, "Thanks, okay, no bother, I'll never bother you ever again, Mrs. MacDonald. And as for you, Mrs. McGrath, you're nothing but an old beep." And that was the end of that. The old one had her cat. She could call her a bitch, but I couldn't say bitch for use. I had to black it out. She called her, "You're nothing but an owl, dirty owl, beep. You're nothing but an owl, beep, beep." Yeah. "You're nothing but a big old fat beep. Go beep yourself, Mrs. Beep, you, beep, you, beep." And that was the end of that. And all the cats lived happily ever after. And if you go up there now, you'll still see there's about 3,000 cats now. And there's loads of baby kittens. Yeah. The end.